The greatest ball striking lesson of all time. I'm Coach Andrew Banner with Golf Solved, and I'm here today to help you become a better ball striker with the number one lesson that has had the greatest impact on my life. 97% of golfers are inconsistent ball strikers. That's why the average golfer will never break 90 in their life, unfortunately. I would tell you, if you just watch this one lesson on repeat and were able to apply it into your golf swinging game, you will easily be able to break 90. That's a fact. So you're gonna wanna stick with me all the way to the end of this video because I'm gonna break down this drill in depth so you can apply it on your own. As you know, in my teaching formula, there's pivot, plane, impact, and power. Well, this video is gonna be very specifically focused on impact. And for me, impact is how the club, hands, and arms are working in unison from halfway down to halfway through in the golf swing. It's not just impact P7. It's actually the transportation of how the club, arms, and hands move through the shot. Because I know that if you're consistently moving, passing through these positions with the same relationships that you want at impact, you're gonna be a consistent ball striker. When I tell you I've had the greatest golf lesson in my life, which sticks with me to this day, I have to go back and figure out what was it from that drill specifically that has made me such a consistent ball striker moving forward. And it was really all focused on one angle. But one angle from different camera angles and how it appears. When I look at my swing on video, I'm able to analyze, am I staying on that angle throughout the shot? So what is the angle? The angle is the relationship between the trail forearm and the shaft. So it's set up, if we take a look at the golf swing from the face-on view, and we have this handle about at the inside of this lead thigh. We want to keep that very consistent throughout the setup, no matter if it's a driver or a wedge, we're always keeping this relationship very similar. And so if we do that, there's going to be a little bit of forward shaft lean built in at setup. There's also going to be this angle between the trail forearm and the shaft. It's not in line. There's forward shaft lean, so therefore there is an angle here. This is the most important part of this session. This angle needs to be somewhat maintained throughout the golf shot. That seems pretty obvious, but what do 97% of golfers look like at impact? Do you think they have forward shaft lean? The answer is no, they don't. They're adding loft. They're trying to scoop the ball off the ground. Their elbows are bending. And so therefore, the club head has actually passed the hands at impact. And therefore, you get this straight line relationship between the trail arm and the shaft at impact, which is exactly what you do not want to do. And so there are a lot of side effects to that position. Now, without seeing your golf swing, I can't tell you exactly why that happens because there's many impacting factors here. You could be jumping up out of your shot because of your misunderstanding of pivot, or it could be because you're straightening that trail arm. We don't know which one, chicken or egg. That is where personalization comes into play. But understand, this angle between the trail forearm and the shaft is what we're gonna focus on throughout this video. So I think it's fair to say that if there's an angle between the shaft and the forearm, and I go halfway back, and I can keep an angle here, get back to impact, keep an angle here, get into the follow through and keep an angle here, just from halfway back to halfway through, what I call impact in motion, the impact zone, transportation of this angle, you can play very good golf. You can apply the same amount of loft at impact much more consistently if there's an angle here versus the club head trying to pass your hands. Now all you're doing is changing the amount of loft on the club face at impact. You're also moving the low point all over the place. So what is low point? Well, that might be one of the most important skills acquired in golf. I think it's fair to say a great ball striker is going to hit the ball first and then the ground second, as long as we're playing the ball off the turf, right? We're not teeing it up as a driver, okay? So the low point is not where the club hits the ground, it's actually the bottom of the divot just a little bit after it hits the ground. And we want that low point to be on the target side of the golf ball. So if the golf ball's here, we want to hit golf ball, hit the ground. At the bottom of that divot is the true low point. That typically is going to appear somewhere underneath that lead shoulder is where the low point will be. That's an approximation, okay? And so how can we consistently deliver the club to impact with the similar amount of loft, forward shaft lean and loft? We do that by maintaining the angle between the trail forearm and shaft. And so you might ask me, well, Andrew, what if I'm trying to hit a wedge versus a driver? Is that going to change? Well, that all changes really in your setup. You know, if you're setting up with a driver, the ball's most forward, ball's on a tee, so there's some setup conditions. But you tell me, is there an angle between the shaft and the forearm? The answer is absolutely yes. And so if I can transport that angle through the shot, approximately, it's not the exact same angle, but if you have this relationship, this angle versus this angle, bad inconsistent ball striker, very consistent ball striker. And that is a massive change to have a massive impact on your ability to make consistently solid contact. So from the face-on view, again, I'm just going to go through this in slow motion. If I go halfway back, I'm keeping the angle. Impact, keeping the angle. Halfway through, keeping that angle. Now, I talked about being able to assess that from multiple camera angles, and that is super important because being able to see this angle from a down-the-line perspective is just as important as being able to see it from the face-on camera angle. So I want to equip you to be able to see this from all angles so you can practice this on your own and get better. So when you take a look from a down-the-line camera angle, how is that going to appear? So we're going halfway down. Now let's go down to P6, shafts parallel to the ground. When we're in P6, we want to see the club head on the inside of our hands slightly. If the club head is outside of our hands, well, guess what? We've lost the angle. We've now got more of this straight line relationship between the shaft and the trail forearm. Versus, if we kept this angle, now look at it. Club head is inside of the hands. So P6, club head inside of hands. At impact, you really can't see as much, but what you can look at in your arm structure, you should be able to see trail elbow underneath lead elbow. So you can see the lead elbow because the trail arm has a slight 10 to 15 degrees of bend in it at impact. This angle will vary depending on height, arm length, a lot of factors. But if you're staying in posture, turning, this elbow will be bent. If it's straight, locked out, that is not a good thing, okay? If it was straight and locked out at impact, the elbows or forearms switch. See how my lead forearm is now under? You can see it on this side. I'm exaggerating here, but I've got a straight locked out trail elbow versus this. Good, bad. Now, what does it look like at P8? So P8 is when the shaft gets parallel to the ground in the follow through. Well, we know we've got forward shaft lean. We're in a good position here. If I transport that with rotation, tilt and extension, you can now see the hands have disappeared in front of my body, but yet the club head is still over here. That's a good thing. That means I maintain the angle between the shaft and the forearm. If I lost that angle, guess where the club head could appear if I go extreme? If I flip and scoop, you'll still see the butt of the club over here and the club head on the other side of my body. That's not that extreme of a position in terms of something that I don't see. I see that all the time. It's because people are trying to save it at impact and they think that's release. But yet release is simply, to me, the angle that you have at address between the shaft and this forearm is minimal. Here, it's the most loaded, the greatest angle here. I should say the least angle, actually. And then we're going to release some of that angle back to impact, but we're not releasing it to the point where it's in line condition with that trail arm. This is the power leak. So when I say maintain this angle throughout the shot, there is variance in how much of angle there will be between the shaft and the trail forearm, but get back to a position at impact where you can clearly see this angle. If you do that, we're in a good position. So I'm just going to initially work on this with slow swings, just trying to hit halfway back to halfway through. punch the ball out there, and then guess what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna go look at the film. Slow it down in slow motion. I'm gonna look at my positions at P6 is the club head inside of the hands. P7 is trail elbow bent and underneath lead elbow. At P8, have the hands disappeared and the club head is over here. If I can get through those checkpoints with 2 thumbs up, that's step 1. Now, step 2, am I consistently hitting it solid? Am I getting more consistent contact? Have I noticed that the ball flight probably came down a little bit because I'm not scooping at impact? Am I finding the center of the face more often? If you're checking off those boxes, well, guess what? Now you're starting to build confidence because the change that you put into your golf swing is producing positive outcomes. And when positive outcomes come on repeat time and time and time again, you start developing conviction in what you're actually doing. If you have any questions specifically on this drill, any of the information I just gave you to help you become a better ball striker, please ask your questions in comments below. Please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I'm Coach Andrew Banner, and I truly care about helping you play better golf. So bring any questions you have, and I'll try to produce content that helps you play better golf.